Hello to the ladies of Atlanta from PadSplit. We're very excited to have you here today and to get to deep dive into all things Atlanta. Blake and Shani, you guys both have long and very different careers that have led you both to PadSplit. And Blake, we'd love for you to just introduce yourself a little bit before we start digging into Atlanta.
Sure. Hi, I'm Blake Lewis. I'm the senior account executive here in Atlanta. I joined PadSplit in 2019 when we had 300 rooms and kept track of people on Google Sheets. I've seen us grow from one city, a pretty primitive or non-existent product, to something like 13 or 14 cities, 8,000 rooms, dozens and dozens of hosts, and a really amazing piece of technology. So my job here is to educate people from what is a PadSplit all the way to the point that they're ready to turn their first property on. And then when they're bragging to all their friends about all the success they're having, they come back to me to do more properties, to connect me with their network, and just keep our platform growing.
Very cool. And what got you to PadSplit? How'd you land here?
Atticus is right about a lot of things, our CEO, but one thing he's wrong about is that he will tell you he's the luckiest person alive. He's incorrect. I'm the luckiest person alive. My family has been in real estate. So starting in college, actually my first job ever was rolling quarters out of the laundry machines at some of the apartment complexes that my family managed. So I've always kind of been in real estate off and on. In 2019, I was really looking for a job that was a career, was something I was passionate about, but also really aligned with my values. So when I met with Frank Furman, one of our founders, he was talking about PadSplit. One of our mottos is do good and do well. And that just really, like, I didn't know how to express what I was looking for until he said that. And as soon as he said that, I was like, you're going to hire me. So I basically just kept on him. They had an account manager position. That's where I started. Also took over onboarding. So for a while, I was doing day-to-day stuff for investors, bringing them on the platform. And then as we've grown from the 20 people when I started to like 130 people, I don't have to wear as many hats. Just early startup life is nothing but like 12 hats. So now I'm just sort of in the primarily like account executive role of getting people started and then working with my teammates to kind of move them along through the process.
Amazing. Thank you. I actually have some personal experience with vending machines myself, both the coins and the little foods.
Oh, okay.
At Best Western outside of Seattle. We actually lived in a Best Western for a while, and my job was to do the vending machine stuff. I rather enjoyed it. It was a little bit tempting as like a 6-year-old to not take some of the pennies, but I resisted.
Sure.
They all made it to the bank.
I have to say, my brother, who's an attorney, demonstrated an early penchant for that career when he negotiated with our father that we should get, for every certain number of rolls of quarters we rolled, we got to keep one. So shout out to my brother for, teaching me your negotiation skills early on.
Amazing. All right, Shani, please tell us about how you landed in Atlanta, how you landed with PadSplit. Fill us in.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and about this partnership with Sub2 and PadSplit. Shani Franklin, I'm the National Growth and Partnership Manager here. I just hit my 2-year mark actually this August. Yes, which, and I always joke, I tell people, the startup life is kind of like dog years. So it's been 2 years, but it feels a lot longer. It was a lot longer in a good way, though. I've actually held several positions within the organization, but right now my primary focus is on growth, leading our national expansion efforts and growth in our existing core markets. So I actually landed at PadSplit through, this is a really funny story, through Stan Sugarman, who was one of the early starters and investors with what we reference PadSplit 1.0 with Atticus LeBlanc, our current CEO and president. Him and I were in a leadership program together through the Urban Land Institute, Center for Leadership, and we worked on several projects together. And at the time, I was in commercial real estate. I'd been in commercial real estate, focused primarily on the prop tech, fintech industry for about 7-8 years almost, and just wanted to do something different. And through this leadership program, we were really focused on land use issues, and affordable housing has always been near and dear to me. And when I was exposed to this opportunity and the great work that the company was doing, it was kind of a no-brainer for me, and immediately jumped in to figure out how I could be involved with the organization. I also spent some time volunteering for the advisory board for the largest homeless shelter here in Atlanta. So that's again been a passion of mine for quite some time, and honestly spent a large portion of my childhood unhoused. So it really aligned with my own personal beliefs and mission. So it was just the perfect landing place for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
Yeah, let's get into some information about Atlanta. You guys are in the number one market for PadSplit. Obviously, you guys started there in 2017. I think you said you have what?
Was it 17? Oh, Blake, can't hear you. Oh, wait.
Sorry. 2017, 2018, for sure 2018. Atticus had kind of informally been doing room rentals, messing around with the idea of it, but like, full on, like sure, maybe end of 2017, but 2018 is when they really got things moving. We were part of a tech startup accelerator called Techstars. That was in 2019, actually. So yeah, he's been in real estate his whole career pretty much. So he was kind of doing it low key and then formally launched PadSplit.
Okay, good. Thank you for the clarification on that. So, but you've seen this market grow. You guys have grown this market. You guys have seen all of, and a good portion of the data that you guys have comes from Atlanta, because I believe E told us, or no, it was Ray told us that you guys have in one zip code as many doors as some cities have. So
yes, we have 2 different zip codes in Metro Atlanta that both have over 300 rooms.
yeah,
Wow.
that's amazing. So
and over 90% occupancy.
You guys know how this works. I guess what have you seen? Well, we kind of know the current state of the housing market. There's a great need for affordable housing. You guys are providing that. I guess the question then would be, how do you see Atlanta moving forward in the future? I know there have been a lot of people that we've spoken with that have expressed concern about saturation in a market. And
I think that's a reasonable concern for any real estate investor. I would say that we're not anywhere close to the point of saturation, and this is a data-backed answer. I say that for a few reasons. First of all, in Atlanta, the median time for a room to rebook after someone's there, they move out, property manager turns the room, it's back on the platform. The median is 4 days. On top of that, while we do have about 4,600 rooms here in Metro Atlanta, and I'm extremely proud of it, what we've done, we're barely scratching the surface of the need. We think about who is our target market here in Atlanta. We're talking about single adults earning under $40,000 a year. Minimum wage on the federal level is still $7.25. You could literally make almost 3 times the minimum wage and still not be able to afford a studio apartment here in Atlanta. So we see our total market of about as 150, 160,000 people. So while 4,500, 4,800 is great, that's hardly anything on the 160. Not to mention, Atlanta is a very desirable place to live. I mean, a lot of people from all over the South, they look forward to reaching adulthood and moving to Atlanta. So I don't think that 160 is going to drop. I think the 160,000 is really only going to go up.
yeah.
What do you think makes Atlanta so special for PadSplit market, for co-living, for shared housing? What is it about Atlanta that, other than time and market, with the PadSplit brand? Well, and I'm curious about that too. Like, how important do you think the brand is? And this is all sort of, for people who are looking at PadSplit and looking at the 14.7% and looking at running a co-living model on their own. I have my own opinion about this. I'm a very strong believer in PadSplit, obviously. But for people who are looking at the two and going, is it really worth it? In Atlanta, what is co-living like there, and how does it all fit together?
Yeah, I think I can speak to that a little bit. I mean, you think about just Atlanta as a whole, everything from our jobs to our economic growth, our population growth. And I always like to take people back to kind of the history and increase in sales prices. If you look at what the median sales price in Atlanta was in August, for example, it was around 500,000. Up from 428,000 in July. And if you look at that number 3 years ago in 2020, the median sales price was somewhere around 397. So you're starting to just see, and that's happening, all over the country. We're certainly not unique to that dynamic, but those numbers are specifically important for investors who are entering the market because it's becoming less affordable to purchase. And there are just several reasons for that, including migration patterns during COVID. Georgia was one of a handful of states that had minimal closures due to the pandemic. And we also have a very vibrant economy. Some of those contributions for that is, higher education, talent retention for those students, having the busiest airport in the world, with last year having over 97 million passengers. We're home to Fortune 500 companies such as Delta Airlines, UPS, Coca-Cola, Home Depot. We're also known and revered as the Hollywood of the South, amongst a long list of other things that just continue to contribute towards our economic growth, and also the growth of our workforce and labor force.
You have to comment on the Hollywood.
Yeah, I've spent my
No shade, no shade.
the majority of my life working in Hollywood West.
The real Hollywood.
And we're seeing everything move south.
I've been to Atlanta to work, and it is a great city. I do like it, but I don't know. You
don't get the same amount of sunshine. I'll give you that.
No,
we're supposed to, somebody saw a weather alert this morning and say it's going to be a white winter in LA this year. So,
incredible.
So all of that makes a ton of sense. And just getting into some of the numbers, what are you seeing as like the general purchase price of a house that is a fix and flip versus a sort of ready to go? And conversions seem to be pretty similar across different cities, but if there are different prices, and sort of people seem to have thumbnail for like, or a rule of thumb for approximately X number of dollars per room converted, furnished, those sort of financial considerations, and then the typical long-term rent compared to what you're seeing for room rentals. Also, and we'll go back through these, but just kind of this whole body of information, like in some areas, just because of this types of houses, maybe only 5 units will fit in a house, whereas others, you can Vegas, right? It's huge. You can get 10 units or 12. What does it look like in Atlanta compared to some of these other cities?
So I've seen purchase prices anywhere from like 165 up to the high 200s. I think it's better to try to be closer to 250, 270 all in. So including the renovations if you can. Prices, of course, are going to vary on renovations, but I heard a contractor say a few weeks ago to assume about $1,200 per wall that you're adding to the property. Please don't hold me to that, because of course, but then furnishing the rooms, you can do it bare bones for $600. You could do it nicer for a little bit more. Also, it's kind of being creative. You could go buy everything at Home Depot, or you could look at people that are shutting down the Airbnbs and get it for, a better price. I think I forgot part of your question. I'm sure Shani remembered. So what part of your question did I not answer? Sorry.
Long-term rents versus
So on average, we're seeing about anywhere from $750 to $1,000 per month per room. A 4-bedroom house and a traditional 4-bedroom house in a lot of areas where PadSplit are would probably go for about $2,000. If you can convert that into a 7-room PadSplit, 7 people paying about, $750 a month, that's over $5,000 in top line revenue. So yeah.
And is 7 sort of what you're seeing, where you see like maybe Baltimore, you're kind of maxing out at 5 and Vegas 10? Is 7 really what you're seeing the most of? Just
the average number of rooms in Metro Atlanta is 7.2, because in a lot of houses in Atlanta, there's split levels. Those were very popular here in Atlanta when a lot of construction was happening, or full on basements. So, if there's egress, so windows or doors to the outside, if heaven forbid there's a fire, those spaces can often be converted. So like if you were able to pick up a 4-bedroom house with a basement, it's pretty easy to get to 8 rooms, because you could, obviously every house is different, but in theory, you could convert the living room, the dining room, and then get 2 rooms out of that basement. And you've turned what would have been a, $1,800 to $2,200 rental into 8 rooms, bringing in $750 a month. Now you're at like almost $6,000.
Yeah, that's very cool.
I'd like to add to that too, if I may. And Blake has certainly raised some great points. And I would just add that we're also starting to see a bit of a variety in our housing stock. And there are a couple of things that are causing that. I'm sure you all are fully aware of the rules and regs around short-term rentals and the crackdown that's happening. So we're seeing a bit of an influx, and I think Blake would agree to this, of vacation rentals who are coming on our platform because of the occupancy issues that they're dealing with, or the short-term rules and regulations. And for that reason, we're kind of experimenting with different pricing models that may be a little bit higher than what your traditional PadSplit model looks like. But we're also learning that there's a bit of an appetite for kind of a nicer quality of home, and people being willing to even pay, $1,000 a month, which is still cheaper than anything that you would find on market. And includes, the cost of utilities, fully furnished, access to Wi-Fi, washer and dryer, typically near public transportation. And it's still a deal, right? I mean, you think about the average one bedroom here in Atlanta, it's somewhere around $1,500 a month, plus the utilities, plus the deposit, plus the furniture, and all the pluses keep adding up. So being able to provide a housing option for individuals who may have some financial constraints is that pool is actually opening up to people who just want to have a affordable place to live with a shorter term, or have a flexibility with bouncing around with remote work. So we're starting to see quite a bit of diversity in our housing stock as well as our members, which is exciting.
I do agree. I think we are seeing more. It just comes down to, is PadSplit going to be the best option for the property? Because like when I meet with someone, I want a long-term partner. And if their first house is a dud, they're never going to do another. And I want hosts that have a goal of 5 to change their goal to 10, and people that have a goal of 10 to change their goal to 20. Currently, like based on just kind of what we know about our residents right now, the median income is about $34,000, and 90% of people are earning under 55K. But that means there are 10% of people earning more than 55K. So the main reason people do historically choose PadSplit is absolutely the cost, for sure. But there are people that maybe have a higher ability to spend more, but they are here for 3 months to work on a movie, or they're just getting out of a relationship or something, and they don't want to sign a 12-month lease so they can pay more. Or there's groups of people that maybe have the income to afford a traditional apartment, but due to maybe like a medical problem or a divorce, they don't have the credit score. So yeah, like I do think that there are some people, I just think it's also, just to set realistic expectations that like, if we all of a sudden had a bunch of rooms that were really expensive, it probably wouldn't fill in that 4-day median like I was talking about, because it's a smaller number of our residents that would qualify.
Yeah, it starts to look a little bit like Airbnb too. And that's really one of our questions. And kind of we started there was and Airbnb is our background. Just that's kind of, we come into it from that hospitality Airbnb perspective. And our perspective there was we wanted the most luxurious thing that we could find, because we knew it would always be booked. And that was because there was in that market in particular, there was just nothing that met the high end, but there was a lot of high end travelers there. So there were. So when it comes to really differentiating on the market and PadSplit's reputation in Atlanta, are people asking questions like, how is this different from Section 8? How is this different from Airbnb? How does PadSplit protect itself in this market where it's already scaled and people already know what it is? What does that look like?
Well, I would say from the Airbnb side, we have a minimum 31-day stay. So we're not doing short-term rentals. I would say that we also do background checks, and then also a credit and an identity verification. We also provide extras to our members. So for the people that are kind of mission aligned, I think it's cool to talk about that we provide telemedicine, positive credit score reporting, staffing agency partnerships, a micro loan partner, et cetera, et cetera. So on the mission side, we're very different. On the Section 8 side, and I definitely want Shani to chime in. This is, her wheelhouse more than mine, but there's a super long waiting list. So there's qualified people that are just waiting on housing. At PadSplit, if you need a house and you have like a couple $100 and a clean background, you can move in quickly.
Yeah. And so, okay. I guess what I'm interested in is not the member perspective, but the investor perspective. Like if we can come in, so there's a shortage of Section 8 housing. If we can come in as investors and provide Section 8 housing, why wouldn't we? Instead of why would we choose between the two?
I think if you have a 2-bedroom house, you should do Section 8. If you have a 4-bedroom house, you should probably do PadSplit. But Shani, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I would say a good way to think about it and how I often describe it is PadSplit is really the privatization of subsidized housing. Mm-hmm. So you think about, just the government's involvement in a lot of things, right? Policy is very reactive instead of proactive. And if we look at the waiting list for the Atlanta Housing Authority, it's 10 years long, right? So people are going to be waiting for a very long time to access housing. And that's what PadSplit provides, is it removes those barriers of access that we're able to provide not only the supply, but access to the individuals that need it. And I can, tell you within the last week, I've met with, nonprofit organizations, quasi-government, government, and there's just so much red tape that's involved in getting an affordable housing deal approved and funded. And what we're able to do is really just navigate without any red tape at all, right?
Circumnavigate the system.
Well, that brings up
Exactly.
another question. I don't want to cut you off if you're still going.
No, I was just going to say, our marketplace is between, our investors and hosts on one side and our members, and we're in the middle making the deal happen.
Yeah. So with the scale that you guys have accomplished in Atlanta, are you seeing, I don't know what to call it, intervention? Are you seeing government coming in?
Are you getting problems? Are people happy? Is legislation supporting? Is it not? Are there I think it was Maryland that has you have to have 5 or fewer unrelated people in a house, and there's ways to get around that through the membership. But are there any regulations in Atlanta that worry you potentially about growth and sustained growth and longevity in that market?
And what is the future like?
Yeah.
Where does PadSplit take this? Because you guys do have an opportunity to
change the world.
Yeah,
That's right. Blake, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So, I mean, there are something like 83 jurisdictions or something within Georgia, or even maybe within Metro Atlanta, that all have different slight rules. So like in the city of Atlanta, what the law actually says, and you can maybe guess what century this was written in, you can have 6 unrelated parties plus 4 boarders plus an unlimited number of domestic servants and watchmen. So we interpret that as 6 plus 4 is 10, and we have several 10-bedroom homes that have been operating for years, no problem. The other thing is our legal team has what we call a short-term, medium-term, and long-term legal strategy. The long-term strategy being to change the definition of family because we find it to be outdated, discriminatory, et cetera, et cetera. But what to do we don't really have any concerns. And the things to do in the interim are to be a thoughtful neighbor. Like your house from the outside should always look as good as all the others on the street. Now, initially that might just mean keeping the lawn mowed, but as neighborhoods maybe go up in value or whatever, making sure that you don't have that front porch with the chip paint when all the other homes have, fresh coats of paint. And then also being mindful of things like parking, noise, and trash. If you, are really thoughtful about those things, you can operate without much concern. We've never once had a house be shut down due to any sort of zoning issue. So we feel very confident. We continue to have inroads with leadership in the city of Atlanta and, the surrounding jurisdictions, DeKalb County, et cetera. We know that we're the solution. We know that, DeKalb County, which is include some of Atlanta and then some other little cities, it's something like over 2,000 rooms there. If they told us we couldn't operate in DeKalb County, they would have 2,000 employees. If all of, not working for the county, but within the county, suddenly.
Nowhere to live on the street.
it would be in no politician's best interest to do anything in opposition to affordable housing at this point. You guys are in a good position.
Yeah. And then the one other thing I want to say, I'm sorry, go ahead, Shani.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say is the way we set up the legal structure is built to protect you as the host. So Kim, if you were to put a house on our platform, your LLC is the landlord. We create an LLC to be your tenant. So you have a 12-month operating agreement with the singular corporate tenant. If Shani wants to live in your home, she comes to our website. We've brought her to our website through Google, Instagram, word of mouth, whatever. She comes, passes our background check, provides proof of income. She applies to stay in your house. If your operator approves Shani, she becomes a member of the tenant LLC that we've created. So you don't ever have, just because you have 7 rooms, you don't have 7 weekly operating agreements. You have one 12-month operating agreement.
Right.
My understanding, wait, Shani, your turn. And then I have another question.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that in more of a kind of macro perspective that the issue we're dealing with on affordable housing is a societal issue. And there's unfortunately a huge stigma that comes with that, not only the people who live and need affordable housing, but the people who provide it. And so being on the front line, our job is very much educating people on who we are, what we do, and the difference between PadSplit and a Section 8 property where the standards are very different. The property looks completely different. So being able to educate people, individually, but even on a larger scale, getting in front of those decision makers and policy makers and stakeholders and influencers is extremely important part of our work and job as well.
Yeah, we've actually been kind of big proponents of making it. I don't know that we can actually do this, but I want to see a change in the kind of perception of co-living in general as a fully acceptable, like.
Personally, I think it's fantastic because we're not meant to live alone. As a human species, we are not meant to live alone. And so, yeah.
It's
And
true. We even have houses for 55 plus communities so that like as people age, they can be with people in a similar, season of their life, homes that are, so like we totally believe in the community aspect. I mean, when I first started, one of my hosts took me around to see all of his houses, and we walked into one of his houses, and there was a birthday cake in the kitchen, and it said, "Happy birthday, Michael, from your 123 Main Street family." And they had, so they had enough, like they liked the sense of the community, and someone, they bought a birthday cake for the guy. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think, going back to it being a societal issue, it's also a cultural issue, right? You think in America, we do things bigger and separate. And if you look at other places across the world, like Amsterdam and Copenhagen, where the communities and the infrastructure of communities are completely different and more communal, and people live together all the time. It's very common in other parts of the world, but we're starting to see that shift happen mostly because of pricing here in the United States. So it's been an interesting journey to watch for sure.
Yeah, it is interesting. And in a conversation with Quentin, we talked about how people come out of college where they live in a situation like this. In dorms, you're co-living. In the military, you're co-living. But everybody has this idea once they get out on their own that they need to fulfill the American dream and buy their own house. And that's sure, that is a good thing, but
I'm not on board
it's
with that.
not-
I don't think
it's-
that should be the dream.
well, I'm not saying what people should dream or shouldn't dream. I'm just saying that I think it's great that you guys are putting this platform out there where it's a great clean. What is your for
Clean, affordable, functional, safe.
Yeah.
Nice.
Damn.
Okay, Kim.
Good
Okay.
It's amazing. It's like it's
Yeah.
everything a home should be, really.
All right, we're getting off track here.
Yeah, sorry. So challenges and opportunities. Are there any challenges in Atlanta? Like it's all smooth sailing, it's the biggest market, it's the most fulfilled.
I mean,
Is it just all puppies and rainbows and kittens?
well, you already saw my puppy, so you're gonna know. But, I have to say, like property acquisition is still really hard. Like it's still like prices are up, interest rates are up. It makes it really more difficult sometimes to make the numbers pencil. We are super blessed to have an incredible vendor ecosystem here. So like once you are able to lock in a property, and we do have great agents, and I know you guys are sourcing off market deals and stuff, like that's honestly, I think the hardest piece. That's the biggest challenge, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The acquisition piece for sure in financing, and what we found ourselves doing really, I would say for probably the entirety of this year, is shifting and focusing and working more with those individuals who are already holding portfolios of properties, and it's easier to convert because they don't have to go through kind of those steps. But we're certainly working with both new time investors who are, just getting started in real estate and understand the opportunity, and then also more seasoned investors as well.
Yeah.
Okay, questions. What should we be asking that we haven't? Like, what do people want to know about Atlanta specifically that we haven't brought up?
So I think that's like Atlanta is like the quintessential urban sprawl city in this country. I mean, I took one urban planning class, and that was Atlanta. That was the chapter, urban sprawl. So it's like, we're huge. When we started, we had this thought that every home had to be within half a mile of our public bus transit, MARTA. So when we started, a host would be like, what do you like about this house? I'd be like, it's 0.6. No, you can't do it. And we had a host in 2019 kind of push us on those assumptions and say, I have these homes in Gwinnett County, northeast side of town, no transit. So I think we know markets that we know work, Southwest Atlanta, Decatur, Stone Mountain, College Park, I could keep going. But then we have these potential markets where we're like, well, there's warehouses here, probably you could have a PadSplit. So I would just say, like, there's so many pockets of Metro Atlanta that just mastering all of them is something I'm working on. Like, there's a town called Palmetto. To be honest, I'd never heard of it, but it's right off one of the major highways. Someone put a house up there and it's filled. So, like, great. Now we have reason to believe that Palmetto can support, more rooms, but it kind of sometimes takes that first investor that's like, feels confident in that area when we don't have the data to back it up.
Yeah. And in my experience, it doesn't take long to get out into a little bit more rural kind of neighborhoods in Atlanta. Do you guys see PadSplit properties working in those areas? I guess as long as there's some work centers around there.
Yeah. And it's just a trade-off. Like, if you're nowhere near transit, then you need to understand that everyone's going to be bringing a car to the property. And, is this the neighborhood that having 6 cars would draw unwanted attention? Or do you have like 2 acres? Is the house on 2 acres and you're going to throw down gravel, behind the house where the neighbor, where people won't even see it? So I think the parking piece, you kind of have to think through. So sometimes what I'm seeing with these more rural parts of Metro Atlanta is that either the houses have less rooms because they need to have a parking spot for everyone, or they're on a bigger piece of land.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I would also say that another consideration would be just kind of our marketing boundary. So our marketing is focused on the urban core, so near the downtown areas. And the further you get away from that, the slimmer the chances are to have marketing support, which, isn't a deal killer. We certainly have investors who, list outside of our core markets. But they are kind of taking on some of the lifting and responsibility of advertising that listing.
Yeah. What about, thank you for that. What about property management? Does that differ? Is some of the things we're looking in, Baltimore, there's snow removal and, what was it, Miami? There's like serious roof repair and serious roof regulations. What are some of the property differences, both from a physical perspective and then also the management perspective, that people should know about Atlanta as they underwrite and think about the market?
I think they're, compared to some markets, the houses are bigger, the plumbing is older, just making sure that the home is as updated as possible, that the home is as energy efficient as possible. 8 adults with the, American diet, a lot of fat and grease and stuff. You want to make sure that your plumbing is ready to handle that. The last thing you want to do is open up your house and have a really smelly situation that requires people moving out. So I think,
sounds like there might be a story there.
No. Like during COVID, when no one had toilet paper, there was a plumbing issue or two. My husband actually works for a food distributor. We went to the warehouse and bought as much toilet paper as they would give us. And then each house, then we delivered like 3 rolls per house, because that was like how many houses we had relative to the toilet paper we had. So yes, there was a plumbing problem when no one had toilet paper. But anyway, one thing I learned kind of early on at PadSplit is that if you are getting a house ready for a traditional rent and the HVAC is not that energy efficient, or the windows are drafty, maybe like you're not, as the investor, you're not paying the utilities. So you're maybe cutting some corners on the front end. You're not concerned about your tenant having a really high power bill. But in a PadSplit, the residents pay an all-inclusive weekly price that includes the utilities. So it is actually a better decision for the investor to spend more money on the front side, making sure the plumbing's tight, making sure the house is going to be as, efficient as possible, because if it's not, like, it's the investor that's paying for that inefficient service. So I think just, doing it right the first time goes a long way. And when a contractor is completing a home, the operator property manager goes and does an inspection, and they're like testing every electrical outlet. Excuse me. Sorry. They are filling up the bathtub and making sure it drains. They're flushing the toilet 10 times in a row. They want the house to be as perfect as possible, because then once the operator property manager is taking it over, if something goes wrong, they're the ones that are dealing with it. So I think like more care on the front end is super important.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you have efficiency, the cost of that is huge, but then repairs, if you have to remove people from the property in order to fix something, yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, how do what happens if people have to actually leave the property? Do you put them in other pad splits if they're available?
Yes,
Okay.
so that would be like an emergency transfer situation. And even though our attainable occupancy is 95% here in Atlanta, we still have, probably whatever 5% of 4,800 rooms is. There's still, a good chunk of rooms potentially available to move them into. And ideally, like it's not a whole house situation, like maybe it's just the 2 rooms in the basement. But yeah, we have 24/7 member support. And should there be an emergency of that kind, whether it's due to a plumbing issue or a tree falling on the house, like we respond really quickly and get them in the closest pad split that we can to be like least disruptive to their daily, life.
Yeah, one of the things that has really struck me about the PadSplit people, you guys, actually, not the members, the team, has been the level of commitment to the members' health and satisfaction and comfort. We were on the phone with somebody the other day who was like, he just went and picked up a member and dropped them off somewhere because they needed a ride. And we didn't hear the whole story, or I don't even remember what the whole story was, but just like, this is a senior person at PadSplit who's driving around members. And I think that's amazing. Like such a pure commitment to the member experience, which I think ultimately investors can't be happy if the members aren't the happiest. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
One of our little mottos here is care, show it, prove it. And I think it really comes from the top. Like Atticus really demonstrates that. So it's, easy when you see it kind of coming from the top to want to like buy into that and live that way.
Yeah.
It's the distinction too between a landlord and a host. You really are, it's gonna, I think, help people differentiate their properties and keep some occupancy if they're providing a comfortable space and they're responding immediately to service tickets or whatever you would want to call them.
Yeah.
Just
I would say to that point also, our hosts have to align with the mission of what we're doing, right? I mean, because it's hard work. It's hard work. And that's what our role is so important, having that consultative conversation, setting expectations early on. This is workforce housing. It's affordable housing. It's, working with individuals who are low income earners who have health issues or have experienced some, life altering events sometimes, or not, but, you just have to be prepared to deal with some of those circumstances and have the compassion and grace to do so.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, really at the end of the day, PadSplit insulates the host from that a lot. Like there's stuff that happens, understood, but I don't want it to sound too hard because I think that would like misrepresent a little bit. Like you guys have amazing property manager resources, you have amazing boots on the ground, you have and understood that like the host really has to deliver, but the investors, especially if they're scaling 5, 10, 15, 20 properties, they've got people doing those jobs. So really as the investor, it comes down to hiring the right host if your personality isn't the right host, and you still get the benefit of the cash flow. So I think there's probably I'm a junkie for the hospitality piece. Like I want people to be happy and I want to see those reviews and like to touch it, feel it. But there are a lot of great investors who I can imagine and be like, I have to do what?
Yeah, there are certainly people who are completely passive and do not want to be involved at all. They're just like, my property manager handles everything and I just watch my bank account. And then there are also some people who are like, oh, well, I want to interview this person before I approve them for moving in. So there's certainly a range of our hosts for sure.
Yeah. And you guys provide that, your tech provides that option, right? Like in the back end, when people go and look as a host, you can approve or you can just choose not to and let the system roll. There's that technology that PadSplit delivers on, I think creates a lot of versatility really for the host, for the investor to really work this within this system and ecosystem in whatever way really benefits them, whatever feels right to them. And maybe there is less cash flow if they're hiring more out, but it's still super solid and they're still doing well while doing good.
And that's what I think is so cool about our product is that when you use a property manager, you can be as aware or as removed as you want. So you can control what communications you get. Like, do you want daily maintenance or only financial or emergency or, some of the above? Do you want, like you could see exactly what's coming in. You can see at a super granular level, like by property. or you can just get your money from the property manager. You sort of like can be passive without being unaware.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Be passive without being unaware. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I hope you say that a lot.
I'm gonna start.
That's good. That's good.
So we're getting through these questions. You guys are super helpful and knowledgeable about this. And you have the data to back it all up. You guys are the I have a question though. Like so say a new investor comes into they want to get into PadSplit. Just kind of give us a quick outline of what that looks like. What they say, yes, I'm interested in being a PadSplit host.
Why choose Atlanta?
And well,
Or not.
yeah. So maybe you don't need to sell them on it because you guys are the epitome of what PadSplit can do. But what is the like procedure for them when they come to you guys?
So step one is what the getting started phase, as I call it, which is to provide all the education, tell them everything they need to know, answer all the questions they have, and then make sure they know what resources are available to them, like within our product, so they can refer back to them as they go through the process. From there, usually the next step is to acquire property. If they need an introduction to a realtor, we have agents that are hyper-focused on PadSplit. They work with the agent or they find, a wholesale deal or whatever. They use our tools to run analysis on the properties. Shani and I also are happy to do that. Like that's one of my favorite parts is running the numbers, but also like show you how to run like high level numbers too. So if it's 11 o'clock at night, you can at least get a baseline number. So you acquire and then renovate. We have GCs that have years of experience at PadSplit. We have, one contractor here in Atlanta that's done over 250 PadSplits. We have several that have done at least a few dozen. So lots of experience. So then you renovate. During the renovation process, that's a good time to interview the property managers and decide which one you want to use so that the property manager and the GC can coordinate as the renovations are being wrapped up. The property manager can get ready to inspect the home, get the home staged and photographed, and be ready to create the listing. If you're using an operator that's already done PadSplit, the onboarding review is super fast. It's just to make sure the home is meeting our guidelines, and then the home can go live. If you're a new operator, you're self-managing, or it's a new property manager that wants to get started with PadSplit, they have an onboarding training with our teammate, John Pace, who's incredible. That way, you know how to do the ins and outs of our platform. Like Shani was talking about, how to respond to maintenance tickets, how to use the group chat, whatever. And then, make sure the home is ready to rock, and then it goes live.
Yeah, great.
And that is great. Anything specific about Atlanta? And the property management piece is like the numbers. So if the houses are bigger, does it cost more? Like one of the things that seems to vary pretty dramatically is utilities. Some cities are above national average, some are below. So those underwriting pieces, the tools on padsplit.com are awesome, but they're not specific to that level. And insurance, is that sort of on par with the norm? How do you?
So we have our largest operator in Atlanta, our Metro Atlanta.
I forgot to turn off my ringer.
They manage 246 properties, and I'm looking at their report from June, like basically from June to July. And basically across 246 properties, the property income was just under $60,000 on the year. And then basically on average, the maintenance and repairs were $4,600 on the year. So a little under $400 per month, if my math is right. And then the utilities, and this is going to sound bad, but again, if hosts aren't like making the home energy efficient, it could be higher, but including internet and landscaping, we're seeing around $8,800 on the year for utilities. And then routine maintenance, the average on the year is $2,790. So a little above 200 on the routine maintenance, $1,000 insurance estimate. And I'm happy to email you these numbers later, but
yeah. In terms of, I've been curious about this. In terms of comparing these to a long-term rental or just a national average, if somebody's looking in a market, even say it's not even Atlanta, but if they're looking in a market and they want to underwrite a property, they're trying to understand utility costs. You guys now are taking a single family home and you can get average utility data for a property in Baltimore or Phoenix or wherever. And but that's based on a family, like a single family home, family of 4. If you have a property that has 7 or 8 PadSplit members in it, would you double that utility, or is there some kind of ratio that you guys look at?
Rule of
I
thumb,
mean,
percent increase. What is it?
I wouldn't
Drum
say
roll.
it's double. I wouldn't say it's double.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're not actually living in the home the way people traditionally live in a home and take 20-minute showers and whatever else.
We can actually back into it. So if it's 8,800 per year on average for utilities in this collection of data, we can look up Atlanta
Yeah. Right.
and see what the percent increase is.
Yeah, I'm not a math person. Please help me.
I'm not either. That's why I was hoping you would answer it.
We have spreadsheets for that. We don't have to be math people. We have technology.
Oh, yeah.
It's true.
Anything else? Anything we can wrap up here? You guys have been amazing and so informative. Any tips for investors looking at Atlanta? Final words of wisdom, thoughts, warnings?
I think ask questions, take advantage of our experienced host and vendor network. A lot of our vendors are also hosts, which is cool because they bring a really nice perspective. I think be curious. That's kind of my advice for really anything that you want to be successful at. There's no dumb question. Just, yeah, I think be curious and don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm sure Shani has a better wrap up than that.
No, I think those are all good points. I would say, sometimes people get caught up in analysis paralysis, right? There's so much information to learn and it can be difficult to take action. So what we try to do is make the information that we're presenting digestible and put action behind it. So just making sure that you stay engaged and rely on us as consultants and experts to assist you through the process.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you guys for your time. Really appreciate it. And your
I'm so
information.
grateful. This was so fun.
Thank
I'm a
you.
little nervous. I was really glad. I am glad it was just the 4 of us, but I still felt kind of nervous. So thank you for indulging the puppy madness. I appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Absolute
Yes,
pleasure.
thank you.
It's great to see you both here. And truly, I want to see that puppy grow up. And I want to hear how your event goes tonight, Shani.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And look, if you guys are ever in Atlanta, we'd love to take you for a coffee and, walk a PadSplit or 2.
Yeah.
Right.
We're a great example. Thank you. We're a great example of people who are basically in analysis paralysis right now. We're like, which market should we be in? We're like
All
so
of them.
ready to go.
All of them. Yes.
I mean, I guess
Here
like,
first.
like prep, like if you were like, Blake, give me 3, I could. I don't know if I should, but I
Do
know
it.
what my top 3 are.
Wait, hold on.